Sometimes, as a preacher, you get the chance to talk about the wonder and the beauty of the Christian life, or the majesty and glory of God. At other times, you are obliged to confront something rather harder, rather less comfortable. And this morning falls into that second group, as Jesus says, "I have not come to bring peace, but a sword." Although Jesus is deliberately exaggerating for rhetorical effect, there is an unflinching realism about this. The recognition that if we are called to follow Christ, other people may resent it, may criticize us and shun us because of it. Jesus talks here in terms of families being divided. If we grew up in a Christian home, we may not recognize this, but it is a very present reality for some of our congregation here in Didsbury, particularly those who were originally from Iranian Muslim backgrounds. I have heard a mother screaming down the phone at her daughter, "You are dead to me. I no longer have a daughter." Can we imagine what that feels like for both of the people involved? It doesn't have to be that dramatic, of course. I have another friend from a nominally Christian background, nominal in that the family never did anything like going to church or praying. My friend came to a real faith as a teenager in a church which held its main service on a Sunday evening. This was also the time at which the family had their main Sunday meal. So my friend's mother gave her a choice. You can go to church or you can have your dinner, but you can't do both. It was a hard choice for a hungry teenager. In Jesus' day, kinship groups were the most important. But for us today, it may be chosen friendship groups, particularly for those who have grown up and left home. These friendships, like family bonds, are part of the way in which we create our identity, and consciously or unconsciously, we adopt the customs, values and manners of the group. So what happens when devotion to Jesus comes in to disrupt those bonds and alliances? How do we justify our desire to live in a different way and to spend time with people who may be written off as a bunch of religious weirdos? Because if we really are following Christ, our desires and our behaviour will change. And if we are living with integrity, that will be very visible to others. There will be pressure to conform, whether open or implicit, and we may find that fidelity to Jesus may lead to loneliness and isolation within our family and social group. And in that, of course, we share a little bit in the experiences of Jesus himself. We take up our cross to follow him, just as he took up his cross, though for us it is most unlikely to take us as far as it took him. He is not lying. He is telling us the honest truth when he says that he has come to bring not peace, but a sword. So does he offer us any comfort at all? Well, yes, of course he does. I wonder if you spotted it. Slipped in right at the end, he says, "Those who lose their life for my sake will find it." If we are prepared to be faithful to Jesus, if we stick to our discipleship, whatever the cost, if we are always prepared to put him first, then we will discover a life that is not just as good as the one that we are giving up, but even better. Jesus said that he came that we may have life and have it in all its fullness. And in this, as in everything else that he said, he does not lie. It is desperately hard to be cut off from our family and friends. And as long as that separation lasts, the pain doesn't go away. But in the church, the other people who are also prepared to put Jesus first, we find a new family. They won't all be like us, and we may not like all of them. But among them, we will find people who support us, help us, understand us, pray for us, comfort us, and love us. As we open ourselves to the Spirit of God, he changes us to become a bit more like his Son. And the same thing is happening to the other Christians that we meet, so that we come closer to each other as we come closer to him. What Jesus says here about division within families is not an absolute law, but it is a strong possibility. On the other hand, there are plenty of families which will support a member in their faith position, even if the rest of the family doesn't share it. It is also important to note that Jesus never asks us to stop loving our families and friends, even though the sword of division may be between us. They are the people God has given us to be in our lives, and we don't have to give them up just because we have put Jesus in first place. Indeed, if we find ourselves separated from our families by our faith, it will always be our prayer that through our faith, they may come to know Jesus as we do. Jesus has hard words for us this morning, but he does reassure us that we are infinitely valued by God, and that if we acknowledge that we belong to him, he too will acknowledge that we belong to him, so that the badge of Christian becomes not a badge of shame, but a badge of honour.